right now, they'll want to welcome to the program the host of the Urban Shooter podcast, Reverend Ken Blanchard. How you doing, Ken?
I'm doing good, man. How you making out?
I am excellent. Thanks for coming on the program tonight. It's good talking to you. It's been since CPAC, or since SHOT Show, I guess, since we've had a
Shot
chance to
Show.
speak. All right, now you are doing something pretty interesting for the month of February, which is Black History Month. What are you doing with the Urban Shooter podcast?
I'm doing a full court press. Actually, I'm going to make sure that everybody knows that African American people, or Americans of African descent, have a big part in the gun industry, the gun world, the gun culture that's not really talked about. And I'm going to try to highlight all the things that we've been involved in and just give a different spin to it.
You know, you talk about. I mean, you're going way back, talking about the Black American Revolutionary War soldiers all the way up to Otis McDonald. And as you say, while gun control advocates want to ignore, I think, in many cases, the racist roots of gun control laws. They want to deny that the gun control laws that are on the books today have a disproportionate impact on minorities. There is no doubt that the Second Amendment and the right to keep and bear arms has been an issue for not just for Americans of every color since the founding of this nation.
Yeah, one thing I found out that was kind of like missing in the argument was that what makes us great and what makes the gun community so special is that how equal we are to each other. We're more patriotic, more diverse than it's purported, and I'm going to try to make that happen.
So, as you've been, have you been doing a lot of research, or did you know a lot of these stories already, Ken?
No, actually, it was both. It's kind of like you hear about the Dred Scott decision, and you know about that he sued for his right to be free.
Mm-hmm.
But when I tie it with my grandfather's name was Dred, and then I go from the whole section of Southampton, Virginia, and Richmond, and then you hit the Gabriel Prosser and the Nat Turner, and then Harper's Ferry, and that whole part. Virginia was a hotbed, which I'm a Commonwealth child. It was a hotbed of freedom, and even going back to the very first Supreme Court case, the Cruikshank versus U.S. Supreme Court, it was an African American who was denied the right to keep and bear arms as he was going to vote. It's so intricately tied to freedom, to our culture, to our history, and has been left out.
Absolutely. In fact, I know one of the things you're going to be talking about, the Deacons of Defense in the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 60s. And this was really, the first civil rights group to say, we will defend ourselves. I mean, you obviously had people throughout the South. Condoleezza Rice talked about her father growing up and other fathers in the neighborhood guarding their homes at night with their shotguns against the KKK and the Night Riders. But this was really a group that came out and said, we will defend ourselves. We're not going to be beaten. We're not going to be killed. We're going to stand. We're going to make a stand.
And what was really funny was that I didn't know my own history, so I was the first one that I can blame, because when I heard it, an NRA person told me, one of the board of directors gave me this speech about the Deacons of Defense, and I thought, oh, that's embarrassing. I got to go call somebody. So I went back and asked a couple of my uncles that still live in the Virginia area, and they said, oh, yeah, between 64 and 68, the Deacons of Defense helped a lot of the civil rights workers, but King, trying to do the nonviolence thing, did not want the message to get tainted, so they could only guard them at night. And almost 90% of these guys were veterans. They'd all come home from World War II, all come home from the Korean War, and they had knowledge of firearms. They weren't just anybody. They were marksmen. They were good people, and they used their skills with the cause, but they didn't get any press because they didn't want that to go out.
Interesting. So, Ken, let's talk a little bit about the podcast. When can folks get new shows?
Fresh every Friday, but you can go back right now. One thing that's cool about the internet, you can go back anytime and catch any of the 255 episodes that are already on in the tank, and just pull it up and read it. You can find it on iTunes. You can go to blackmanwithagun.com, my website. You can go to Stitcher.com and look for The Urban Shooter.
All right. Well, listen, Ken, thank you so much, sir, for coming on the program. It is great talking to you, sir, and I hope that we can do it again very soon.
All right, man. You have a great night.
All right, you too. Ken Blanchard joining us, the black man with a gun, host of the Urban Shooter podcast.